Public Works Zoning Committee, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lawson, Mr. Johnson, myself, Mr. Chuck Fowler is here, and guests. We only have one thing to discuss, and that's the, just have a introduction of an ordinance to discuss the support of the fund endowment agreement for the Copeland Saunders Foundation, which really predates this administration. But just for the record, it is a deal whereby they gave us $1 million and we enjoy 5% of the corpus for the purpose of maintenance for the Copeland Saunders building. It has been adopted, and I think, Mr. Trey, you're going to prepare an ordinance, and we
Yes,
will...
sir. We have prepared an administration and legal department, a fact sheet for an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a support fund endowment agreement with the Copeland Saunders Foundation.
We don't take any action, just have it.
Just for introduction.
We'll introduce that at the meeting this evening and take formal action 2 weeks from...
Correct.
Anything else to come before our... The reason I'm 17 minutes late is because we have not much to talk about. And we don't have a motion because it's just done, and we will have a formal action on the next meeting. Anything else to come before our committee? Now we'll stand adjourned and go to whoever wants to take charge.
What's next?
Didn't have a meeting about.
Legal, I think.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
It does.
It is. Okay. I can go down into legal. All right. The legal committee will come to order. President is myself, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Lawson. We have one item on the agenda, and that's to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a third-party limit attachment agreement between Clico Power and the city for the installation of fiber optic cable to be attached to 4 poles located in Industrial Park Road and Highway 1, and it's book item number 45.
I move.
Second. It's been moved and second. Discussion.
How long is this for?
We up to talk.
It's well, the city's currently upgrading our telephone network system. There are 4 poles that we'd like to run fiber optics across that are owned by Clico Corporation. The rent for the poles is going to be $25 per year. It'll probably be a 5-year contract. $25 is the going municipal rate for this type of infrastructure.
Looks fine.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We will refer this to the full committee. Any other business? Mayor.
Mr. Chair, we'd like to put forth an agenda item fact sheet. It does not have a contract attached, which does not follow the normal rules. I put a remark note that I would work with Mr. Hobbs, Chair of Legal, to negotiate any legal fees or structure that needs to be met before the next meeting and ensure that any contractual other items are passed out. The title would be, again, an agenda item fact sheet to introduce by title an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with John Adragna, Esquire. That's A-D-R-A-G-N-A. The explanation proposal is the administration seeks the services of Mr. Adragna to assist in the litigation of City of Alexandria versus Clico Corporation in the event the present mediation is not immediately resolved. We think this is necessary. Mr. Adragna is one of the best in the business. We've researched him through 2 independent sources, 2 ways to find out what kind of persons we would need in the litigation phase of this case as opposed to where we've been. And we are all in accord that Mr. Adragna meets those types of needs and specifications. We'll submit it to the chair. And ask that you please consider that today. To facilitate, since there's no agreement attached, we'll again copy everything, send it to each member of the committee and indeed all members of the council immediately. Does it hurt anything to have it in place?
No. I need a motion and a second for introduction.
And second.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
It's moved and second for introduction. We refer it to the full council. Any other business?
No, sir.
This meeting is adjourned.
Meeting following.
You made it. Y'all want to roll?
Lean over here toward me, Lean toward me.
You want to keep moving or you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's keep moving.
I would like to call to order the Public Safety Transportation Committee. Present on the committee, myself, Mr. Silver, Mr. Lawson, other members of the council, the administration. Item number 1 is to hear from a status report from the administration concerning the following departments. Code enforcement, which has 2 areas, which is public safety and also planning and zoning. First, we'll hear from Ms. Muriel Lawson.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. What I provided, if you look off to your left, I've given you a listing of items, grass cuttings, as well as litter violations and citations that were issued for the year of 2007, as well as those up to date for 2008. Also included in there are door hangers and knockers that were used associated with notifying the public on things that we would be desirous of them not to do as a warning prior to issuing a citation. So far this month, most people should have received their utility bills. We've also had a utility insert giving them notice as to our grass codes as well as the litter codes and things that we're desirous of them not doing, such as blowing weeds and other things into our storm drain. And it also tells about the grass which should not exceed 10 inches in height. So, at this point, if you have any questions in regards to it, I'll certainly entertain them. Usually, we get a calendar from the neighborhood groups, and we also participate in those meetings and keep the neighbors informed as to what we're doing in their particular subdivision, as well as if you look at it by council district, we'll show you how many grass cuttings as well as litter violations have taken place, say, in the year 2007.
Ms. Lawson, would you give us an idea when the city goes out and cuts a lot, what the average cost, so the citizens would know it's not something that's inexpensive?
Typically, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a minimum of $75, and it goes up from there based upon the size of the lot. I don't have before me right now the specific amount, but
So you're saying the low end 75, the high end 150, 200?
it could be $500, $700. If it's
Okay.
acreage, it goes up accordingly.
There's
If
about
you
a-
have the fee schedule, and you can find it online, or if you're in question about it, I'll provide the information.
No, I
If
just-
someone wants to call me, I can reach at 441-6011, and I'll give them that information. I just don't have it available right now, the documents that I've submitted to you all.
I just wanted folks to know it's not inexpensive.
No, sir.
Ms. Lawson, if you could, can you touch up on the garbage pickup days? Some of the area residents might put their trash out on a Monday when their trash is scheduled to be picked up, maybe on a Wednesday, and a lot of times the trash is torn apart by animals, pets running through the area, and it's scattered about on some of the city streets. And I see that a lot, throughout neighborhoods and on some of the major thoroughfares of our city. How's that addressed if there's a person, individuals that randomly does that?
Okay. Based upon the code of ordinances, as far as garbage pickup, it's not supposed to be out any earlier than 6 p.m. the day before service, or no later than 7 a.m. the day of service. Anytime that garbage or any type of debris of that sort that's ready to be picked up by a garbage truck is put out, before that time, it would be in violation, and that's where your say are either issued or warnings are given based upon how much garbage and debris is out, or if it's a public hazard or safety issue.
Mr. Lawson?
How do we handle getting back, I guess, to the overgrown lots? I had a situation where, for lack of a better word, searching for the appropriate word, Mr. Marshall, one of my constituents called me. And the concern was we mowed her lot, and she wasn't served. This may be more a legal question. How do we handle a situation when there's no mailbox to serve a person? And they have been assessed for mowing the property.
Currently, we have changed our system based upon our city attorney's recommendation. Persons will be notified now, and they will be given 10 days notice. But based upon the code of ordinance as it reads right now, we're supposed to mail the information to the last known record, which is listed at the tax assessors or the clerk of court's record. So if in fact the last known address or the persons who used to reside there and moved to another location, it is their responsibility to provide that information to the tax assessor's office. But as it stands right now, that's where we send it. That's what the code stipulates, is that it's sent to the last known address in the tax assessor. That's listed at the tax assessor's office.
And if that's a mailbox, then what?
If there's a mailbox and if the post office cannot serve, they usually make certain attempts, like maybe the first or second or third attempt. If there's no mailbox there, we will receive the certified mail returned to us, and we proceed with cutting the grass. But residents of Alexandria are given notice. It's not just a utility insert. It's also put in the newspaper.
Okay.
If you look,
I see.
it's enclosed in the
Chuck just told me to read my information.
It is enclosed, even a copy of the one that was put in the newspaper the first part of this month,
Okay.
notifying the public
That's fair
of
enough.
grass season beginning.
Any other questions that come before Ms. Lawson at this time? Mr. Hobbs?
We're on Dallas, the old portrait. Is that falling on the code of portrait? I mean, is that,
As far as demolition or
well, they
litter or what?
you know, they did the demolition, but they didn't turn it into a hand.
Well, I don't know if they have a permit. That area, some of it is zoned single-family high density, some of it is zoned industrial. If in fact they have a permit to have a junkyard, they would be in compliance now. You know, as far
Well,
as the visual
street
aspect
here.
of it, they would need to secure it by a buffer fence or buffer yard. But
Well,
if it's not classified as a junkyard and there's debris scattered about associated with the tearing down of it, then we could possibly get them on a litter violation.
It looks bad.
Yeah, we need to check it out, because before, the zoning allowed him to do what he did across the street. But on the portrait side, that was supposed to be demolished and cleared out. And it looked like it was been added on instead of clearing out.
Scrap metal.
And yeah, it turned into a scrap yard.
I'll research it and I'll get with also the planning director. We'll try to find out whether or not it's associated with the demolition of it, and if so, we'll get with the building inspector and maybe you can contact the owners and tell them that they need to have it
Yeah,
removed. If
but-
not, we'll do our part to try to maybe look at it as a possible litter violation.
But please, this time, I don't want this one to slip, you know, and you weren't there, and at that particular time when he got the right zoning for, you know, zone industrial across the street. But this time, before anything goes on, we don't want it zoned, and it's probably already zoned industrial. But, you know, I thought we had passed something after that you can have scrap yards and all that in town. Yeah. So, just on the safe side, before he get issued any type of permit, or if he has a permit, please, Frank, you know.
try to research that
Okay.
and maybe make a few calls and see if I can find something out for you this afternoon.
Any other questions for Ms. Lawson at this time? Ms. Lawson, I would like to thank you for your report and the status of your part of code enforcement from Public Works.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Bright? Ms. Bright, can you come to the podium, please?
The concern that I have has been with the neighborhood organizations. It has to do with the question that you asked about trash in the limb truck. And I know that we've had trucks that were out of service. We've had employees that were in short supply. But because we have so much trash in furniture and things that are put out, if the zones would have a regular day when the truck would run, and we've never we've discussed this before about having zones when the truck would come to keep from having this stuff be out 7, 8, 10 days. And then that's when you have these animals that get into all this stuff, and people go through the black bags and things. Because when they move out of some of these apartments and stuff, all the mattresses and stuff at the curbside. In a couple of cases, I've called code enforcement, and by the time the lady comes out, the limb truck has passed by and picked up a lot of stuff. But if the truck is broken, it may be 10 days before they pick up the stuff.
Mr. Marshall?
Several years back, I think we might have to research it, but I thought we passed, we allowed landlords, when a person is, say if a landlord evicts a person from their property, that they were allowed, instead of putting it on the street, for the trash sanitation department to pick it up, that they were allowed to have dumpsters brought to the site and then put the furniture and mattresses and all of this stuff in the dumpster and hauled off. And if they didn't, I thought it was a fine in there.
Correct.
My understanding was that if they were doing some remodeling or construction work, that they were, along with the permit, they were supposed to have the trailer. But like if someone is moving out, if they're paying their utility bill that's $16 and something cents, then I was told that we pick, the city picks that trash up.
But what I'm saying is, if the landlord, for instance, you have a house, and you got and you evict a person from your house, you do an eviction, and Marshall Bird comes out and does his thing. It used to be that you had to put the furniture and stuff out on the street and allow the person to come and get it. That's no longer the case.
It must be something new because...
It's been there for a while. Nobody's paid any attention to it.
The stuff is put out on the curb. Because I have pictures of some of the stuff that's been moved out.
But I'm almost positive we did do an ordinance on that. It was several years back.
Okay, thank you for your comments in those regards. We'd like to move to the second phase of this report to hear from planning and zoning concerning code enforcement. And this item was added due to the retrospect of there's been some concerns in a lot of areas where there have been illegal signs on poles, telegram poles, more of posters, signage in the thoroughfares. So at this time, we'll hear from planning and zoning.
Yes, sir. As far as the illegal signs go in the right-of-way, they're normally picked up and discarded. If they're a sign such as a real estate sign, business advertisement, we will give them the courtesy of a call to see if they'll remove their sign. If they don't, we will remove it and discard it. And of course, any complaints we receive, we address those, immediately.
I've noticed also there's more and more posters going up on telegram poles. Those also addressed to...
They have not been. Normally, light department will remove those when their linemen go out. a lot of them are too high for us to be able to get to without ladders, but if they are reachable, yes, they can be removed. But a lot of times they like to take the nails or whatever out too, so they don't get caught in the lineman's spikes. But we'll remove whatever we, can reach or get to on those.
Okay, Mr. Lawson.
The biggest violation I see normally is with those running for elected offices. And I think that's what we need to really crack down. Firstly, we have a criteria, if I understand correctly, that you're only supposed to put political signs out within, 60 days, whatever the specified period is. And I think we're probably the only major city that really just not hard, fast in enforcing. But I would like, and I said I wanted to do in a year I was running, to make sure that we start enforcing not only that the signs are put out within the time that we allot, but also that they're picked up within the time that we specify.
Right, and sometimes they'll put them, if they put them behind the right-of-way on their property, that's another matter. But if they're out ahead of time, of course, we could do something about that. Now, some of the bigger signs that say, like Lamar and those people have, we've permitted the sign for its construction and installation, but the actual facing, we don't, permit each time they change the face on it. It would have to be something we'd have to just kind of address on an individual basis. Which, like I say, would not be a problem if that's what we need to do.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, no other questions. Thank you for your report.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is to hear from the administration concerning bus transportation on Twin Bridges Road.
Just Twin Bridges?
And this item on Twin Bridges, just to address your information wise, was because some concerned citizens had to walk on the street in some of the areas to catch the bus, and they asked that this would be addressed, by the administration.
I'll make a few comments, and then I'm going to yield to the Assistant Director, Rick Tompkins, and also Pat Lamont with the Transit Department. I have provided to you some maps as well as some aerial photography of Twin Bridges Road. And in dealing with the Engineering Department, thankful to Darrell Johnson has provided the locations and showing some of the streets that are coming off of Twin Bridges Road. It's a very narrow road. It's only 22 feet wide on average. The buses that we have, and if you look at the documentation that Pat has provided to you in the form of the email, the buses are like 102 feet wide. Excuse me, 102. Pardon me.
How long is that thing?
A little less than 9 feet wide, and it doesn't give enough room for turning. Even with Linton, he can go over that. He's more of an expert in that field, but it's something we would need some time to research as to whether or not that's something we could provide those services. Certainly, they may be needed out of necessity. Maybe we can get with the apartment complexes that are off of Twin Bridges Road, but just trying to turn in and out of, say, I think Walden Point apartments were the apartments of question would be quite difficult, because then we would be going on to private property to try to provide those services to turn around. The other residential streets, turning radiuses and things of that sort would make it quite difficult to accommodate those buses. So I'll let Pat expound a little bit on it, but we have provided some of the notes from that as well as the maps identifying the area we're referring to.
As Ms. Lawson said, Twin Bridges Road is a pretty narrow road. You don't have any sidewalks on either side. You got a bayou, of course, on one side. You got two turns in there that the bus will not hold either one of those turns. It's 35 foot long, so it won't hold those turns. Your speed limit's 45 miles an hour. If you do one or two stops, then you're going to, of course, delay traffic and hold traffic up. If you deliver service to that area, you're going to have to have construction at Jackson and Horseshoe Drive. The bus can't make the turn there. I think the other one was Esтерwood, if you go that route, you'd have to do the same thing. If you turn off into neighborhoods, Bocage, you'd have to do construction there for that turn. Maybe you can get by with that one. Brunick, you'd have to do construction for that turn. The bus is 40,000 pounds loaded. I don't know if that road is constructed enough to hold that. There's not many large vehicles go up and down that thoroughfare. We have no idea how many people would be involved in using the system. Recommendation would be is to have a meeting, find out their needs, when, where they're going, that type thing. There's other means of transportation you can give them. You can do a feeder route where you pull in there at certain times of the day and pick up what you think you're going to have, and that could be heavily publicized for the people to use the system. Other than that, if you go through Brunick's neighborhood and Bocage neighborhood, I don't know if that, I'd imagine that area could handle a bus, but the vibration from those buses would cause some issues with the neighbors. We've gotten out of all the subdivisions we've ever gone in because of the vibration from the bus and the noise.
Any other questions that come from Mr. Lamont in this report? And I go along with your statement that the residents out there, they have some concerns to maybe have a meeting to address those needs that can and cannot be met so far as their public safety is concerned. So I think if anyone, who's watching this or who would read through the news media should contact the City Council or the administration. And I would like to thank y'all for that great report.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is to hear from the administration concerning blighted areas.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. What in particular would you like to know? Brenda Ray's with us, and she probably knows as much about those areas as any of us.
When we talk about blighted areas, some of the areas of the city where we have a lot of the homes hasn't been boarded up, or there's a lot of concern about a lot of drugs, prostitution. I'm sure the chief has to deal with a lot of those situations through his department, but it's been real noticeable around the city where we have, especially during this time of year, where we have the concern of a lot of young people going into these homes, and it poses a dangerous situation in communities and neighborhoods and different districts around the city. And so it's just overall concern. Yeah. And I would like to know where we are so far as...
Community development is actively pursuing those condemnations, and they bring some to you every council meeting, right, for your approval, review, or continuation. And it's an ongoing, active effort, to maintain that condemnation list and to also continue to enforce it.
Right. And I know we addressed it from meeting to meeting through the report that we received through council from the administration at the end of our meetings, but there's always that concern of where we are so far as that program is concerned.
And there is a consultant now that is working on that issue, which we will have a report on, and I don't know the exact date. Okay, maybe you've got an idea of when that'll be on Jaquad.
For Jaquad, we don't have a date for his report, but we do have the meetings that have been scheduled, the community meetings. I don't have the
April,
schedule with me.
I think the first one was April 14th. Yes, that'll be next month. So we will have a report on those.
Okay. And what we can do, when we get that report, we can schedule it to bring that report before council.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, the administration would also be happy if you wanted to have a separate meeting, maybe from a regular meeting, to go over some comprehensive plans to do with blight that don't just deal with commercial and residential condemnation.
Okay, thank you.
Whenever you want, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take you up on that offer. I have anything else before I come before public safety before I introduce this ordinance?
I have probably not related to public safety, but it comes under utility. I had an individual the other day to give me a call concerning the utilities on Twin Bridge Road. And maybe I asked Jane, where's the city limits on 23?
It stops at the second extension of Bocage, which is just down from Walton Tennis Park. With Lebanon, Joe Heston.
Right.
Just past it, where you go into the new part of Bocage subdivision, it stops right there.
Mr.
Well, I
Howard,
think he was right then, what
Ms. Lawson just gave you a map. Has it?
yeah, I was looking at
detail on
it. Yeah, but it doesn't say where the city limits stop. But the individual that called me, they thought I was on the, they thought I was the chairman of utility. And I turned this over to Marcus. Marcus, they're telling me everything on the right-hand side, past Bocard, leading all the way past McKiffins and stops past McKiffin going down to the last pole, belongs to the city. How did we get so far out of the city limits? Number one, and then they're telling me, you know, this individual told me that we feeding one house at the end of our pole. So I took a ride, you know, I drove down, and I looked, and we are feeding one house. If everything belongs to us on the left, I mean on the right-hand side. It's on the left-hand side, it belongs to Cleco, on the right-hand side, everything belongs to us.
That's a very good question, but probably could be answered by someone that was here before I was. It wasn't built yesterday, and it wasn't built 2.5 years ago.
No, some of the poles are new.
But we do have service out there, and you know, of course, if we have service out there, the more customers we serve, the more profitable it is. It's a waste to have infrastructure that's already there and not utilize it by serving customers outside the city now. I mean, the line is already there.
The line has been there.
It's been there. That's correct. No, it wasn't built yesterday, and it wasn't built 2.5 years ago. But it's there now, and if we have an opportunity to serve additional customers.
Well, I see what we're going to serve this subdivision that's being built. But when the individual asked me, I said, no, we don't have nothing going that far. I didn't really believe that we had a line that went that far out.
Some of it has to do with reliability, you know, tying circuits together. Instead of having one feed, you try to tie circuits together so you'll have dual feeds. In case one circuit goes out, you'll be able to backfeed other areas. So some of that is caused for reliability purposes, so that you don't just have one feed going down the line and it dead ends, and if that line's out, they're just out of power. There's ways that we do extend lines in those situations for reliability purposes, so that customers aren't out for a long period of time. And unfortunately, sometimes those areas are outside the city limits. Now, I don't know if this is one of the cases. I would have to look at the infrastructure and determine exactly why we could, and I can get back with you on that.
Seems as though they did their homework. I mean, he was telling me more than I knew. So I said, now this can't be true. So I took the ride out. But I would like to have an answer, because they asking me for an answer.
I can look at the infrastructure and look at the maps and kind of determine exactly where it ends and terminates, and then the reasoning for why we went as far as we did. I can get back with you on that.
Okay, thank you both. I have an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the American Cancer Society. And the explanation for this proposal is that the American Cancer Society engages in educational programs and services within the community, which includes the Relay for Life. The city and the American Cancer Society wish to help raise awareness with regard to major health problems, including cancer. And this ordinance is something that we've done in the past and that we have assisted upon in past years. Can we get a motion, a second, that we introduce this to the full council? Moving second. All in favor, let it know by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Anything else to come before public safety and transportation at this time? And nothing, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, call our Finance Committee meeting to order. Members present, Mr. Silver, Mr. Hobbs, and yours truly. Item number one is to hear a report concerning utility fund deposit. I'm not really looking for a report, more so than maybe some information down the line on how we deal with our utility deposits as it relates to other municipalities. I don't doubt in my mind. I think we're reasonable as possible as the law or ordinances would allow, but what I am asking, because our ordinance has been on the books quite some time, is that we look at it and see if we're in line with other municipalities, or maybe with the advent of technology and more things geared toward crediting ratings, or maybe Dun & Bradstreet, if you're talking about businesses, maybe we can incorporate other things to help give people a more reasonable utility deposit, particularly with the businesses. I know some of the service stations have complained about the thought that it may be a little excessive, but they don't know the stories probably that we hear about those that leave thousands of dollars in arrears with their utility bill. Mr. Crutchfield, comment on?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lawson. I think we're always open to improving if somebody has a better idea, and we'll definitely research that and see if some other municipalities have implemented something that may be a better plan than what, or a better method of doing it than what we have. I just want to let you know, and anybody else who is watching or hears this, that we do allow our commercial customers whose deposit based on our ordinance would be over $2,000 to put up some other form of surety, be that a bond or a letter of credit or something like that, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a cash deposit. So we do have those alternatives available. But I'll spend some time and ask, probably ask Lamar White, who does a lot of research for us, to research what some other municipalities are doing. And
If
see.
you're an existing business, and the call came from a top-level official of one of our largest businesses, and his concern was that they were requiring, or we were requiring, them to put up a substantial deposit on expansion of their business. And of course, their track record, I would think, has been pretty good without naming the business publicly. And it kind of caught my attention that if they had a track record, and then could they use their existing deposit to spin off into another business in a different location?
They definitely could. The particular business that you're talking about was grandfathered in and did not have a deposit on the existing business. So
the time they stop with commas rather than periods, they telling me stuff.
However, if our ordinance bases the deposit on demand, and if a business was to expand and have a greater demand, then according to our ordinance, their deposit would need to increase. And
this was several $1,000s.
Right, but just our
I understand.
Our ordinance says, it basically is based on demand, and if your demand increases, I told her, anyone whose deposit is over $2,000 is welcome to use an alternative method besides cash. That doesn't tie up that amount of cash. They can use a surety.
So a letter of credit would do?
Sure, letter of credit, surety bond, those type things.
Good. That's fair enough.
And we do work with our good customers and established customers all the time to try to help them.
Okay. All right. Anything else on item number 1? Now we'll go to item number 2. Is here a report from the administration concerning parks and recreation and summer programs. I hear all the time what's going on, and I know we have a lot going on in the city. Of course, I'm always interested in hearing additional things that will be going on. What's strange is month after next, this is practically April, will be summer. So I think it's now time, particularly going into our fiscal year, that we address our summer parks program and recreation program. Ms. Lisa Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I'll recap for you some of the programs that we've done in the past, which we have plans on repeating this year. Outside programs that we support, the Boys and Girls Club, we have supported their summer program where we provide funding in the amount of $6,000, and that takes care of about 30 to 40 kids for a 9 to 10 week summer camp. Ash Sports Camp, we've been supporting them for years, and that's the same amount, $6,000, and that's about 60 kids that we provide scholarships to attend their day camp, and that's from June and July. We offer swimming down through the partnership with Peabody. We use their pool during the summer, and that's at the tune of about $45,000 for June and July. And last year, their report to me, their final report, they served 7,187 kids. They offer swim lessons in the morning, and then in the afternoon, they have what's called a free swim, where the kids can come from 1 to 4 p.m. and just swim. We do the same for the YMCA. They serve about 900 kids over the summertime, and they only have the 1 to 4 p.m. free swim. But in speaking with them for this year, they are willing to incorporate scholarships for swim lessons as well at the Y. We have worked for years with COPE, which is a nonprofit organization here that offers an academic and cultural camp at the Teen Center. And that's for the month of June. It's open for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. And they serve about 45 kids every year. And we offer, as I said, the Teen Center to them. In calculating those outside, that outside support, we're reaching about 8,000 kids at the tune of about $65,000 a year. And we are committed to continue these programs again this year with these organizations. Now, in-house, through community services, last year was the very first year we offered a day camp at the Martin Community Center, and we are planning to repeat that this year. We're trying to work out Bolton Avenue Community Center as well to offer a day camp. We made, the hours for the Martin Center was from 9 a.m. to, I think it was 3 p.m., and we have summer feeding there. We're not allowed to do the summer feeding at Bolton Avenue because there is an existing program there, and they don't allow you to do duplicate programs. So the hours may be a little different there for the summer program there. We also, in July, have at the Teen Center, have a teen camp where we serve about 25, 30 teenagers. That's between the ages of 13 and 17. And at those centers where we don't have a day camp, like the Broadway Resource Center, the Martin Luther King Center, we offer art camps where we partner with LSUA and the Museum of Art to provide various forms of art camps. And those are always free of charge and open to kids ages 6 to, I think it's 12. So that's what we're, through community services. And I did ask, and Ms. Lawson may want to elaborate a little bit on the zoo, because they also have summer camps that they offer at the zoo as well. So that's our plans thus far to offer summer program.
Lisa, I got a question for you though.
This one? That was in the proposal. Yes, sir.
In reference to swimming camps, is Peabody, that's the only one that we utilize besides Peabody and YMCA and YMCA?
The YMCA, correct.
Because I was thinking about Ash, and doesn't Bolton have a swimming pool also?
Bolton doesn't, and the reason why we don't utilize Ash is because that pool is tied up with the sports camp, and by us offering that scholarship to those kids, they can go to the Ash Sports Camp, but the pool is not open because of the Ash Sports Camp. And the mayor made a note, this year we are working with Peabody, and I've already spoken to the principal, because in the past we haven't had restroom and dressing facilities available, but we're going to work with them to make sure that we can use the facility there at the school if it means that we have to provide additional staff to secure that. And we did the same thing with the YMCA to make sure that the kids could have indoor restroom facilities when they go to use when they utilize that program.
Okay. Other question.
Yes, sir.
Bolton Avenue. Mm-hmm. I know we do a feeding program there for the seniors, the senior citizens, but that's like on one end of the
We actually made an application for Martin Community Center and Bolton Avenue, and the application for Bolton Avenue was rejected because of that. So we don't know, that was the reason that they told us, because they have an existing program there that they don't offer two at one site.
I know that you got to be, I think, 60 years old or a senior citizen.
We made the applications for both, based that we were going to have a day camp, and that's the response that we got. The Martin Center is fine. We can have the summer feeding, which will be breakfast and lunch, but we were not approved for the one at Bolton Avenue. So we just need to work out some time. If we're going to have a full day camp, 6 hours, we need to work out feeding for the kids, or either we can have the camp after lunch, or, like I said, just kind of work out some kind of plans for feeding if we're going to have them there 6 hours or more.
Okay. Get with you on it.
Okay.
We can work on something else.
The fact that we're spending, what is it, about 60,000 is the number? You know, people will be impressed with that number. I'm not very impressed with it, quite frankly. That's a negligible amount of money to invest in the city when we look at a $200+ million budget. And that's been traditional, that we would put that, we're putting now more in there than we put in the history of the city of Alexandria, but it's still, to me, a negligible amount. And I know it's not all the money that goes into the youth programs.
Yeah, that's just outside of what community services does.
Right.
So, and I apologize, I don't have the actual number. I know my programming, well, the department's budget, I think I'm close to $1 million, but actually in just basically just programming, I spend about $200,000 is what is allocated for programming.
We're spending more now than we've ever spent.
Correct.
Before. What I'm saying is still not enough. And I'm not blaming you. I think we need to address the situation. And when we're looking at our programs, I see you. I'm also concerned about attracting the elderly generation. I know we have some senior programs, but all the time we talk about recreation, we don't have a park, for instance, for seniors. Now they're designing parks for seniors, designing parks for dogs now. But certainly our senior citizens ought to have a park that is attractive. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is to make sure we beef up our parks and recreation aesthetically, first of all, and secondly, listening to the people within the community to say what's attractive to them. The other void besides senior citizens, I know we have the teen center, is that it's very, very difficult these days to attract teenagers to our recreation program. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It's very hard to get that 13 to, well, first, when you go over the age of 16, most of those kids, and I can attest to that, they want to work.
Right.
They really don't want to be a part of a, structured program because they want the opportunity to go and earn their own money. But it's hard to get, which I'm not using that as an excuse. I mean, we're willing to develop whatever it is to attract them, but it's really hard to get that
I
teenage
want to challenge
crowd.
the administration, and I hope we support it, to continue to do and go beyond what you're doing, which I think is great. But we need to invest some more money in that age group, because quite frankly, that's the group oftentimes that we deal with the city, but unfortunately not in your department, it was Chief Cootie's department. And so what I'm trying to do is make sure we can channel the money to your department versus Chief Cootie's department. And I don't think he would mind.
I'll take all his money.
So if there's a stellar program out there, and I know y'all have been looking at programs, I'm very, very anxious to see it, such that we can mimic it to keep these kids off the street. Those that want to work, of course, are not the problem. I'm worried about attracting these kids that on the borderline of being dropouts and finding out what it is that we can attract them to. I was teasing my son about a swing. I don't know if he's ever been on the swing or a merry-go-round or a seesaw. So I know those don't work anymore for teenagers. But I'm anxious to hear in the next several weeks something in addition to what we've been doing, which is more than we've ever done before, to attract the age group, quit funding his department to deal with that group versus funding yours. Okay.
Oh, yes, Mr. Lawson addressed part of my concerns, and I think, Ms. Lisa Harris, I want to commend you and your department for what you've done through community services for the city of Alexandria. But again, that's that age group out there that we must look at and target, that age group 16 and above. At one point, the city of Alexandria had a recreation program for that middle age group. It seems over the last few years we've gotten away from that. And I know we've talked about that, but it's that age group that the chief deals with, and that age group where there's a lot of concerns about, from just being on the streets with some of the things that the chief has to go through and make an arrest and problems that we face in our city that I'm not going to go into, that has a lot to do with drugs and other things. But I think, like Mr. Lawson stated, we have to take that look at those programs and see can we meet those needs in helping you and with community services to go beyond the way to accomplish those measures. So I just want to again commend you for what you've done, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
And wherever it is and wherever you find the program where they've turned it around, that's the one I'm anxious to hear about.
Okay.
And it has to involve, quite frankly, the ecumenical community, and it has to involve the educational community. So something that I think that gels those entities together is what I would be interested in, recommend that we would fund in addition to what we're doing. Go ahead.
And if you don't have anything else, I do want to give y'all an update on the spray pads.
Well, I have one thing I'd kind of like to ask and ask the administration to. I know the exercise equipment over Bolton Avenue it's been there for a few years, and it's getting a heck of a pounding. I'm going to ask, and Mayor, I'll get you a letter down as to that effect, but I'm going to ask that we kind of look at this year putting some more exercise equipment in the center and upgrading what we do have in there. And so we're doing that, so we work that. But I just want to kind of get it out there because of the fact that our seniors are over there and they're doing their thing too. And the kids need to also work out, they work out there in the afternoons primarily.
Okay, will do. Just a few minutes, I'll update you on the spray pads.
Yes, ma'am, please. I think we have a few minutes.
Okay. We had a meeting on last Thursday, I think it was, with Mark Hatchell, who represents, Kimley Horn and Associates, who is the design consultant for the spray pad. So I want to show you all what the preliminary design. And this is the figures that goes along with that, the cost. We have,
We're going to get high tech real soon. That's something else we put Lamar and the technology people together and to where you all can do the PowerPoints, and we'll have it, but they're working already in this office to get the technology where it not only be seen as we're looking at it, but also on the screen. Over there to do that, they're working on it.
There are 3 sites that we're proposing, and one is in Harmon Park. The flagship site would be in City Park, and this is a site that is actually, they call it Peabody Park, but it's directly in front of the school, Peabody Magnet High. And of the 3 sites, 2 of these are going to be smaller pads. When I say smaller in cost and size. The one that you're currently looking at is about 300 square feet, 700 square feet. And he's giving us 2 options on these pads. The bottom option here, of course, has more fixtures on it, more colorful design for it, and the one up in the corner here does not. And he gave us an option for a couple reasons. This, of course, with the fixtures, is going to have more maintenance on that, and you may have the possibility of vandalism. And it's not, that's just something that he tells us that we need to be aware of. He's done these around the country, and you just need to be aware that you're probably going to have more vandalism because there's more things to actually break or to destroy. Being placed in front of the school, this one may be a better attraction, being that it just creates a look of just a waterfall or just the water without any fixture. So it may complement the look of the school. All of the pads you're going to see has some type of design or a color scheme in the middle. He just, because he heard that it was in front of the school, he just placed the Peabody here. That's not that we have to do that. If we want to go with the city's colors, or if we want to choose another color just to be at the base of the pad, we can do that as well. In your packet that I gave you, this proposed pad would be about $200,000. That's one of the smaller pads. And he has all of the construction and all of that worked into that price.
What type of warranties are included?
Say that again.
Warranties with pumps and that kind of thing?
I think he said about,
Construction would be a year, the pump depends on the manufacturer, sometimes 2 to 3 years.
and I asked a question too, as far as the pad itself, the rubber and everything that you place down, you know, and there, we have choices as we can pay more and it's gonna last a couple years more. You can, you know, depending on the price and the budget that we wanna stay in, you can get that type of material. You may just have to replace it. I do recommend that when we place these pads and we construct them, that we have a maintenance budget, because you may have spray nozzles that you have to replace or just minor equipment that you need to come back every year and replace, so we definitely need maintenance on.
Let me hold it up.
Oh, I'm sorry, when we get high tech, we'll do it.
You're gonna get that real soon, though.
Lisa, could they give us a typical on average maintenance on the different types of park installations?
On the how much the maintenance will be a year on it, I can ask him for that, yeah.
Just typical,
Yeah.
and then we can compare.
And Mr. Smith brings up a point, Brenda Ray and through Community Development has identified additional funding where we can put restrooms at all of these pads. Through her department, we'll be able to
Brenda
put
need to
those.
keep identifying that and shit.
This is the bathroom, try to go this way. I'm just gonna say, this one here, Mr. Dawson was concerned about blocking the view of the
Yeah,
school.
that'd be like,
But, yeah, I didn't.
he's all right here?
He all right.
I guess aesthetically, you would want to keep the school.
I know, but I'm
view.
just saying, but with, Mr. Lawson, I'm not saying that, I mean, we're gonna try to go, but they got cars and they got vans and everything else, that block the view of the front of that school. And you know, they got cars parked in the driveway, he was concerned about blocking the view. I just wanna let you know.
Okay.
He just recently, I don't know something about it.
And on all of these designs, you're gonna see that he's incorporated sidewalks and also picnic tables and benches. All of that is incorporated in the design as well.
I like the top, I think that fits good. I think it adds value.
Well, it's less
like a
maintenance.
water fountain.
It's less maintenance.
That's right.
You know, this is, you know, people come over that town, but it's less maintenance on that. I want to go out the restroom with soap and water.
The next one is at Harmon Park, and it's basically the same.
I just had a question for the spray pads. What are the age limits that you're looking at for the children to use?
It's normally the spray pads are an attraction for, of course, the younger kid. And it's not, there's no standing water where a child, you know, small enough that's not swimming or anything like that. There's no standing water where there's a safety issue there. I don't know if it's an attraction for a teen or, is that what you're asking?
Well, I've seen the spray pads, I've seen some of them were designated for the parents there with the toddlers. They have different little animals and things that make the water. Then you have young, older kids that are 5, 6, and 7 that can run through the showers, you know, and they have little pumps and they have to music and things like that. So I'm trying to see at what age are you gearing?
These smaller pads, and I'm gonna get to the flagship pads, these smaller pads are not gonna offer that type of what you're talking about, with the music and the different fixtures on there where you can run through, because they're small. We really don't have the space for that. So this is probably gonna be for a younger child. That's in the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old
Ms. Bryce, the reason why on this side, on the other side, you see the basketball goal, and you see the large, where the larger kids play. On the other side of the street, on this side, where you see it's really for the smaller kids, and that's why it's you want to put the spray park over here, because it's geared for those kids, not for 13, 14, 15 years old. They know better. I mean, because we got the little basketball goal, and on this side, the swing, the thing is geared toward small kids.
And the bigger pad is gonna have that. I'm gonna show you that in a minute. The Harmon Park is actually identical to what
the Peabody site looks like. We have the option of the one without the designs, and just creates a cleaner look, or kind of complements the area. Now, restrooms will go here as well. I think it's over in this corner area where we identify, and he's gonna send me another drawing, and I'll have it technology ready for y'all. Well, he's gonna send another drawing that shows the restrooms, where we're gonna place those. In the sidewalks, I mentioned the reason why we need to have that. You need some type of buffer between, let's say your park has sand or loose grass or whatever, because you don't want to attract that into your pad. So that's the reason why he's creating the sidewalks, and he added the picnic tables and benches around as well.
Okay, that's gonna be, okay, I know where the pavilion is over there.
It's actually 11th Street side of.
It's on 11th Street, okay.
Because
okay.
there's, right there, I think now there's a basketball court that's there.
Yeah, it used to be a basketball.
It used to be, you're right,
Yeah.
and that's the site that we're looking to put that pad.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep the pavilion that is there. And you mentioned earlier too, Mr. Lawson, I know the fast track money, we designated about $3 million, and the plans for the rest of that money is to go into these parks and upgrade and bring in up to code the playground equipment, the fencing, the pavilions, all of that, to bring that up to just make it look a little bit.
All our parks are very nice, and you look at Franklin Hunter and Harmon, and certainly our city park is second to none. You look at those cattle guards, I call them. We can do better than that on Masonic, and really turn into a family-oriented park. So I'm glad to hear that we're about to move pretty quickly on that.
Okay, the next one is City Park, which is our flagship. And I have two options to show you there. Of course, this is a bigger, those two spray pads were 700 square feet. This one is actually 3,000 square feet. And it has what you're talking about. It has, and because it is so close to our zoo, we're able to get some features on this pad, like whales' tails, different animal heads, or whatever the fixtures that would be on there. The actual two different designs, I think it's the way that the pads are actually positioned. When you look at them, some say like this one here looks like a ladybug. I mean, we're keeping the animal theme going. But they're both the same square footage, and they just offer, here you can see where the kids can run through, like Ms. Bright was saying, and you have the smaller area where the water just shoots up. And we also, there's two options that you have with a spray pad. You can either, for lack of a better word, dump the water, or you can recycle it. Of course, it's less expensive for us to dump it, because when you recycle, you have a lot of other things. So we're actually just gonna, and engineering has worked with the consultant to identify all the water lines, sewer lines, and everything for it. And we will update the restroom facility that's at City Park. So all of them will have adequate restroom facilities.
I got one question. Will timers be on them?
They will create a little box off from the pad where recreation or a maintenance person can go in and basically turn it off if we want to not have them run during the winter months. And then there will be timers where, if nobody's there, if like every 15 minutes or something, it'll go off, and then a sensor, if a kid happens to show up, and it'll come back on or whatever. We will have the option, if we want to say from November to January, the pads are closed, we can actually go in and turn the water completely off.
Talking about the restrooms, do we have any extra money? Mr. Silver, appreciate this. The folk with Deborah Bowman's park off Sturks Road certainly have been anxious about getting the restroom. I think she has extra money, or she can probably look at adding that. Mr. Silver, they still want to know that.
It surely is promised it's 7 years.
That's out of the target zone.
It's out of the target zone.
But we'll take everything else if we can't have the rest of it.
But maybe if we have the ability through the fast track money, certainly we want to keep that area in mind.
Do y'all have any other questions on the next, like I said, he will send me an updated design with the restroom in, and I'll let you all see that, and the next thing will be to actually begin the bidding.
Can we get this on Channel 4 between the next several weeks of this?
The pictures of it?
Yeah, I think the people at home love to see. We're gonna get some PDF files for those tomorrow.
Mr. Smith, you can get a shot of screen too.
I think we're gonna do the advertising for 30 days.
I want to say when.
Oh, when, the next phase? Well, I'm giving him, he asked me to give him a couple weeks so to go back and redesign, adding the restrooms in. And once we're okay with that, and I asked that if there's a citizen or anyone has, or you have any questions or concerns about it, just let me know so that I can go back and talk with him and try to work that out so we can move forward with it.
Take them about 6 weeks to produce the drawings.
Guaranteed.
The question was how much is for the big ones? The flagship pad is 400,000, and the smaller ones are 200,000 each. And that stayed within my budget. No, that's in consultant fees, but it still stays within the million. He knows that that's his budgeted amount that he's working with.
And we still haven't forgotten about the fountain downtown. It'd be kind of like the one in front of the Shaw Center.
Yeah.
And I appreciate anything else. Thank you, Ms. Harris, for the barbecue festival. I think everything was beautiful, nice, safe, no problems out there, I understand. And thank you for that.
You know yet?
No, not yet. I think it's still working. All right, we'll go to next item, which is a hero report from our illustrious Director of Finance. I like it when he approaches and he's smiling at us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like a definition from the prior discussion on extra money. I'm not sure what that is.
We have a lot of loose change.
You all should have received a third quarter financial status report. It's for the time period ended January 31st, which is the third quarter of our fiscal year. And I'll go through it briefly. If you would turn to page 2, there's a recap for sales tax collections. You can look at towards the bottom of that page. The page details the different sales taxes and the collections so far this year. At the bottom of the page, under the section titled Total All Sales Taxes, you can see that our sales tax collections for the first 3 quarters of the year are up 3.43% over the prior year, which is probably lower, the lowest that number's been in the last few years. It's still an increase over the prior year, but a modest increase, yes. We have collected year-to-date $31,857,000, and we had budgeted for the first 3 quarters $24.2 million. So we have collected in excess of our budget by $7.6 million. Any questions on that page?
Okay.
Go to page 3. Is a further breakdown of revenues other than sales taxes, including sales taxes, but also other revenues. In the left column under the budget, in the middle of the page, you see a line that says budgeted use of fund balance. That's our revised after our major budget amendment. We budget to use $3.9 million of our existing fund balance. And I'll let you know in just a minute where we are for the year to date. But our to date revenues in the general fund are $38.6 million, and $37.3 million for the previous year, first 3 quarters. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Page 4 and 5 are a detail of expenses in the general fund. The middle 2 columns are fiscal year to date for fiscal year 08 and 07. Not a lot of changes between the 2 fiscal years. I would note though on page 4 that the finance department's budget expenses have decreased.
I would think you noted that.
At the bottom of page 5, it shows that the total expenses for the first 3 quarters of '07 were $35.5 million, and '08 were $36.7 million. So an increase of about $1.2 million in expenses. And our surplus for the first 3 quarters was $1,874,000. So as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, fund balance at the beginning of the year was $18.3 million. And for the first 3 quarters, we've added $1,874,000. So our fund balance at the January 31st, 2008 was $20,262,000.
People get excited, but then we'll make sure they read the article. It was in today's paper or yesterday's about our infrastructure.
Yes, and I'd also like to point out that our budgeted expenditures in the general fund are almost $60 million a year, so it's a relative number. Page 6 is just a detail of sales tax fund, which receives sales tax collections and disperses them to their appropriate funds. Page 7 is our risk management fund, which receives funds from all the different city departments and disperses them to pay insurance premiums and claims on general liability and auto claims. And at the bottom of the page, I guess what's that? Sorry. Probably the most important number on this page would be the claims amount. And as you can see, our claims expense is down about $150,000 over what we'd spent in the first 3 quarters last year, so that's a good thing. Fund balance in that fund is $4,994,000. Any questions on that? Page 8 is a further detail of claims in different departments by different claim type. And you can look through there and see that for instance, the general fund, general liability claims are down, but auto claims are up, and various things like that throughout the different departments. But as I said, the bottom line is our claims are down a little bit this year. Any questions? The Employee Benefits Fund on page 9 is the same type fund, but it collects money from the different city departments and the employees, and then pays out health insurance premiums and claims. As you can see, the same place on that page, towards the bottom of the page, the claims number is $3,408,000 for the first 3 quarters of this year, compared to $3,424,000 last year. So we are basically have spent the same amount this year as last year, which is a good thing considering the rising cost of health care.
The wellness program.
We don't have one.
Lack thereof, I should say. Is there a legal issue there? I mean, it seems prudent to me that we would have a wellness program.
Well, I think there's a wellness portion to our health plan, but I don't know the details to that, Mr. Lawson.
That's something maybe we'll talk about down the line, maybe more of a personnel issue that we'll address, but most of the companies, certainly, and a lot of government agencies, find it wise to invest in wellness program for their employees. So that's something I'd like to look at down the line, to make sure we have some incentives out there to keep our employees healthy.
I know that you mean that much more broadly than this, but I do think we do have a zero deductible for some wellness issues, but I can bring those details to you. I don't know that to be the case. Sir?
Is that where we have the nurse?
We do have a city nurse. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm talking about maybe the exercise program where they can be a member of a fitness program, something of that nature. You talked about Justin Bolton Avenue. We had a fitness program that we can encourage them to be in, maybe encourage them to have regular checkups. I'll be the first one in there.
That's what I think by offering that wellness benefit, that it is designed to encourage people to have regular checkups. But that's the extent that we currently have. Not that we shouldn't have more, but that's what we currently offer.
Okay.
Anyway, if you notice, the current assets in this fund are $3.6 million, which has allowed us, the stable claims and the fund balance in that fund have allowed us in the budget that you received, the administration's budget proposal, to hold insurance premiums the same this year, and not increase the employer and employee portions of those.
Retirees.
Or retirees as well.
Okay.
Hold those the same. Any other questions on employee benefits fund? Page 10 is the unemployment benefits fund. Very small fund, and just pays a few unemployment claims that we may have. Page 11 is the utility fund. The top of the page is a recap of revenues, and as you can see, our charges for services are up about $2 million this year over the first 3 quarters of last year. And if you look at the middle of the page, there is a detail by source. Electric revenues are up a little less than $1 million, water about $300,000, gas $500,000, and wastewater is up about $250,000. Any questions? Pages 12 and 13 detail the expenses in various departments of the utility fund. And one note, one of the larger increases is in the finance admin section, and that's because that's where we do the transfers out of the utility fund, and we increase the transfer, speaking of infrastructure, to the utility capital projects fund, which is a separate fund, but still in the utility enterprise fund. But we increased our transfer this year to do some infrastructure-related improvements.
What caused the wastewater increase?
It's an increase in volume. We did not increase the rates, so it's an increase in volume. The rates on all of those have not increased in
2-3 years.
Several years. The wastewater rates were increased in '04, I think.
About 3 years.
'05 maybe. Electricity and gas have not changed since 1986.
Ms. Crutchfield, under customer field services, what does that entail? I look at the fluctuation of prices.
The cost in customer field services, as you can see, is down about $300,000, and that customer field service department is the utility customer service office, the meter readers, the cut off guys and ladies, and various things at the customer service office.
Are we still where we need to be with the meter readers? Are we still?
We are at full staff. We just hired, just interviewed and hired. We had a couple of vacancies, and we hired and filled those. We had a lot of applicants, so we think we're hiring good people. Our estimated reading rate is still low, and we're on schedule, on time with our reading, yes. So that's good news.
Okay.
What about your
Lineman? Well, that's we're probably probably Marcus could answer that question better to speak for utility electric distribution, but I think they do still have a contract crew.
That's kind of major bills, though.
Yes, I think they give them the larger projects. I think
Mr. Smith was asking about contracting out linemen. Just gonna.
We have annual requirements contract, and we do have contract crews in place whenever we fall short of employment. In fact, we have crews that are working now to help us on various maintenance items and also line installation.
Okay. What is it called? We need to raise the pay or something?
Well, we're having difficulty filling a lot of the upper level positions in the utility division, and pay is one factor. We are continually going down to Civil Service Commission, asking for starting salary increases to try to hire the skilled labor force that we need.
Not short.
Oh, we're always short, Mr. Hobb.
We work with the, that's Fred's gotten worse than I got one council a little bit closer. But, we work with the trade school to try to get folks out of the profession in there. Do we have a relationship with them to try to get?
I don't know if we do, Mr. Lawson, but a lot of our senior lineman positions, it's not a trades position. It's someone that requires a high level of experience. It's not, a lot of these positions that we're having trouble filling are not apprentice positions.
How are they trained for them, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, you have to be on a line crew or someone who wants to lead Clico per se, or another utility distribution.
It's like an apprentice type situation?
Well, that's the problem we're having, is that we don't have enough younger people in place in the apprentice positions to move up to these senior level positions. And it's become a problem. So now we're going out into the market and trying to attract individuals that already have the 7 or 10 years of experience that are required for these skilled labor.
And the pay plan we're gonna get in July of last year, you gonna address that? Is this mic on?
I didn't quite hear that, Mr. Lawson. Was that directed towards me? I certainly hope it does, but the pay is certainly not as competitive as it should be with the surrounding markets.
That's what I was concerned about. Okay.
We train them.
Yeah, that's what we training them.
We certainly train a lot of people.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's costing us. I'd like to see down the line what it's costing us to train. It would be shocking what it's costing us to lose those lines. Our line crews, no longer line men.
Yeah, we're having to hire a full crew because it's not just one person. We're 5 to 7 people short in a lot of departments. So you're looking at a full crew, if not 2 crews short, in a lot of the departments that are in the utility division.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I know I misconstrued when I said July. It was July 08, not 07, right? The paper. That's the question.
Okay. Page 12 and 13 detail the expenses in different departments of the utility fund. You can see fuel purchases are there. That's one of the larger expenditures on the middle of page 12. Electric fuel purchases were $35 million last year, $36.8 million this year. Gas purchases were up $430,000. So the increases that we talked about in revenue, our gas department revenue is up $500,000, and fuel purchases are up $430,000. So for the most part, it's a pass-through of the fuel cost, and obviously a little bit of increase in volume. Total expenditures, page 13, in the middle of the page, $76.8 million last year, $81.5 million this year. And the bottom line is that we're $2,025,000 deficit, excess of expenses over revenues for the first 3 quarters of this year.
Okay.
But like I said, we did increase the transfer to capital projects out of this fund, so that accounts for most of that deficit. So we'd basically be at break even if we had not increased that transfer. Page 14 is the sanitation fund. Top of the page, the charges for services are up about $250,000 over the same time period last year. Part of that's an increase in disposal costs, the fuel charge, increase in fuel costs for diesel. And the other part is an increase in revenue because of the issue that was in our audit report last year.
Okay, on disposal, that's once it gets the ISI.
That's ISI's charges to us, yes, sir.
So what, in that contract we had, increase in the gas?
In our existing contract has a factor, an inflation factor for the price of fuel, and of course with the price of diesel being what it is, it's added about 10% to our disposal cost.
And where are we? Because that contract is about to expire, it has expired.
Yes, it actually hasn't expired yet, but I have something I'd like to introduce after we get through with this to address that. Any questions on the sanitation fund? Other questions? Page 15 is the zoo fund, and expenses in the zoo fund are up about $270,000 this year. We did, as you can see at the top of the page, we did receive we received $175,000 in funding from the state that we did not receive last year. That helps to offset that increase. Any questions? Golf course fund on page 16. Revenues, well, I'd like to point out in that fund, expenses are down about $50,000 this year compared to last year, and the transfer from the general fund to that fund, as you can see, the internal service interfund transfer